I was really reflecting on this myself this morning of just like how much I have felt. The word I can use to describe is lighter. Like I just feel lighter and so much happier about my life, so much more free. Welcome to the Weaponized Marriage Podcast. I am your host, Kendra Hewitt.
And my name's Ryan Hewitt. I'm a host too.
Awesome. And today's topic is,
I don't know. What are you talking about?
Well, so I was telling Ryan that we were about to have a conversation, and I was like, shit, let's just record this conversation and see where it goes. Because we just did, we had a big week this week. We have 3 awesome things that happened this week.
Okay, what are they?
Number 1, we got a cabin under contract.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that's been something we've dreamed of doing for 15 years. And really the last 5 years was something that we were trying to make a reality. And then here we are.
Yes. And I think the huge thing that we should point out right away beyond logistics is that the underlying story is I saw this property, contacted our agent that we've been working with for over a year now. And I went to an open house, which there was probably 50 people at the open house. And Ryan could not go with me. So it was Lily and I, and Sandra, our agent. And I walked around the house and I just like got quiet before I went in there with my gut. And I heard very clearly, this is it.
Well, I knew that was it from the pictures and from the description and from everything that I saw, because in 3 years, there had been not a property that was that. So I knew it was it. And when you said it was it, then I definitely knew it was it.
Yeah.
So long story short, we put in an offer and it was accepted.
But this is a couples podcast, and I want to see the lesson behind it of like,
okay, we'll get to the lesson.
Level of trust that I put a cabin under contract by myself without you even stepping foot on the property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, because we made a list before of our top 10 and our non-negotiables. And so you know what I need and I know what you need. And it was all there. And you said that this was our place, and I believed you, and I said, go for it.
Yeah. So I
haven't even been there yet.
So, and that's what I'm saying is the most amazing part, I think, of this story is that just the trust, level of trust.
Yeah.
Level of trust there.
Okay, so that was thing number 1. What was thing number 2?
Thing number 2 was in the past month or so, Ryan has really been feeling lonely when it comes to his relationships with peers. We're in a stage of our life where we have one really good friend that's going through a pretty brutal divorce. We have a friend, one of your other close friends just had a baby, and he was his first baby. So he's in the cocoon of a newborn. I was starting to pick up on that this was something underlying that was bothering Ryan, but he was unable to articulate it until I would say kind of last week, to the point where I almost considered texting both of these people on his behalf just to say, hey, like, can you just check in with Ryan just to let him know that you're good? Because we were starting to get worried about one of the situations. So Ryan shared a stack with me, which is his journaling app, about how alone he was feeling in his personal relationships with friends. And his birthday was coming up, and I had asked him if there was anybody that like he could see himself becoming friends with. And there was this one guy, Tim, hopefully you listen to this, that he had done the Go Ruck Marathon with recently, and they were starting to train together a little bit. And he was like, well, I think we'd really like to hang out with Tim and his wife, who I didn't know his wife at all. And for Ryan's birthday, which was last Thursday, so a week ago today, I ironically ran into Tim in the gym. I'd never really talked to him much, and I just felt this, again, very gut instinct to invite him to this birthday dinner for Ryan. And so I invited him, and I kid you not, this guy took me so seriously. He booked it like the day that I mentioned it to him because I was like, we have to do it now. Like, if we're gonna pull the trigger on this.
Yeah, it was such a blast. It was a surprise because I kind of knew you were taking me there already because
Yes,
you're not
you
very
did
good
not.
at keeping a secret.
Well,
Um,
I asked you where you wanted to go
but
for sure.
I didn't know you were inviting Tim, so that was special.
Yeah, and his wife came along, and we really hit it off, and that's gonna bring me to the next part of the segment with one of the things that I think was really amazing about that night was beyond the fact that I kept it a secret, was the fact that, I felt like a real sense of camaraderie. If is that did I say that right?
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie. And very easily, like I said, I just had really met his wife that night. We picked up on like some very deep conversations, and the deep conversations revolved around the fact that they started listening to our podcast. So they kind of knew a little bit about us behind the scenes. And we had just like an amazing night with them, getting to know them, having, like I said, some real raw, authentic conversations. And one of the conversations that came up was about our experience with plant medicine in the last year or so. And I was saying that it was just 1 year to the day almost that Ryan had done his first plant medicine retreat. And I was very curious, but I was very in my head about it. And so fast forward to the third amazing thing that we're going to get into is we did also our plant medicine retreat this weekend again. Um, and every journey has been really different. This one in particular was like it was fucking awesome.
Mhm.
They've all been awesome in different ways. But I was telling Ryan, this is where the conversation was going, that I have been starting one of the things that when you open yourself and you start to do this type of work, I'm finding is that like the week before and really the week to 10 days after, you start to get massive awareness and downloads of things that catch you totally by surprise. So I was telling Ryan this morning, I was just driving by myself. I had dropped Lily off at camp, and I was like, I can't wait to share this with you. But I started to have like a really big download. And it was me starting to process and think about my logical mind of like, hey, should I invest in this thing for us next? And I was thinking about how at Plant Medicine, one of the greatest things was there was 20 of us this time, and there was only one new person who fit in right away. But the most amazing thing at the beginning was of the 19 people that were doing the journey that night, all of them have done one in the past. And to see the evolution of from when I first met them, when I did my first journey, to the evolution of the journey this weekend was just such a strong testimonial of how amazing an opportunity it is that we have the ability to do that.
Mhm.
And I was really reflecting on this myself this morning of just like how much I have felt. The word I can use to describe is lighter. Like I just feel lighter and so much happier about my life, so much more free in lots of ways, which you don't want to digress into. But the download I got was I was starting to get more into that logical, cerebral type of my brain of like, is this a good investment? Should I invest this time, energy, and money in what's next for us? And I heard how I hear it is God say, I am showing you the path. Will you just walk it without questioning me?
Mhm.
And without having to figure out every step. And I was like, damn, because I knew exactly what he was freaking talking about.
Well, I think that's half the magic of, or maybe the full magic of what plant medicine is it takes you out of your head and into your heart. So it just opens up your heart, and it just allows you to receive pure signal, I like to put it, right? So a lot of our life is full of noise, whether it's the noise of like the to-dos and the day and the fires you got to put out and the places you have to be and your appointments and the people you have to get back to. Whereas this night is all about like using plant medicine to get out of your busy brain and just into your heart and receive whatever messages you're supposed to receive through getting quiet or through conversation,
Mhm.
right? So, and I think, through our conversation that night, I think you and I actually spent a lot of time talking to people about. I felt like we spent more time like giving than receiving that night, which
Mhm.
I really loved actually, and which is part of the purpose of doing this podcast is to share our experiences and our lessons. And we're not trying to like tell people what to do, but maybe give people inspiration and have them maybe identify themselves in things that we've been through and how we've been able to navigate it. And I felt like we did that in multiple occasions, with different couples or with different individuals. And I
Mhm.
really enjoyed it because we didn't spend the whole night together, but
Mhm.
when we did, it was people wanted to know about how we have gotten to where we are as far as in our marriage or in our business and whatnot. So
Yeah, and the big download for that for me was like, man, what if I could really believe that every freaking mess in my life was actually part of the plan? And that was like the big download. And like, this is going to make me emotional about saying it. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but we've already shared this on the podcast. So I feel like it can be good. One of the things we talked a lot about with a couple individuals as well as a couple there, it was the first time where I felt like you and I were really working together with people by sharing our messy story.
mhm.
So the messy story was this. Several times, I can count 3 times, your the evolution of you telling the story of how we got to where we are today was what where it starts is with Ryan having an affair. And there were couples that probably didn't know that. I don't think any of the ones we talked to knew that side of our story, even though, like I said,
Mhm.
we've shared it on the podcast. But here's where I want to share something that is really, really powerful. I realized you told that story 3 times in 3 different ways to 3 different people with the same thing, but every time you told it, you got a little bit more confident in sharing more detail. And here's where I thought was the gift for me. When you share that story, no longer have an emotional response. Like, I was, like, sitting there and I was like, "Holy fuck, he's gonna share this again." And I knew in that moment when you came into the conversation on 2 instances that I needed you to come tell that story
Mhm.
to go where I was going with the person I was talking to.
Mhm.
And it opened up the other people in a way that I can't even clearly articulate right now.
Well, and this is where you wanted to go with the podcast today is with emotional safety, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what was I going to say? So I think that like for us, when that happened, like selfishly in the moment, you're like trying to fill your needs and it's like you're blaming the other person and you're in survival mode and you're trying to survive, right? But when you look back, like what changes, like that's the huge like car crash and the big like the big make or break moment, right? It's the defining moment of what changed everything. And the only way we got past that was when I took radical responsibility about how I was showing up in our marriage and how it was resulting in the reflection of what I was seeing.
Mm.
So I read this Stoic passage recently, and it's super fucking harsh, by the way. So this isn't going to sound good. but it's speaking to men specifically. It says, listen, if your wife is showing up as a bitch, she's like the boss and bossing you around and like nagging you and bitching at you, and you resent her, and like you just don't want to be there. You spend more time at work because you don't want to be at home. It's like that's your fault. Like
Mm,
that is who you have like created. And like I said this on I was on a podcast recently. It was a chiropractic podcast sharing with younger chiropractors like what are the elements of success?
mm,
What makes people well, what why are you so successful in what you're doing? And I told like one of the first things was it's like one of the most important decisions of your life is who you marry, right?
mhm,
And who you marry becomes a reflection of you, right? And if you don't like what you're seeing in your spouse, it's because you're fucking up. But you don't see that in the moment, and you don't see that when
mhm,
you're immature, and you don't see that when you've never had anybody coach you or tell you that
yeah,
that is even a thing. And like we both did that though. Like if one
mhm,
person just takes total responsibility and tries to take ownership and move forward and the other doesn't, it doesn't work. If both parties take responsibility for like the event, whether it was you had an affair, I had an affair, whether it's like um whatever defining moment happens in your marriage, if you're going that direction, if both parties don't see like here's how I'm not fulfilling my spouse's need, whether it's like
mhm,
for me like touching me, um having telling me words of affirmation, or like prioritizing sex in our marriage, like if that doesn't happen, like we're never going to make it.
mhm,
And for me, like if I don't um deliver acts of service, if I don't take things off your plate, if I don't recognize all that you're doing in order to like make this life that we've created together, then it's not going to
mhm.
work.
And, like, even, like, I used to get super triggered when you would say, like, "All I need you to do is touch me, tell me, touch me, fuck me." And I know that
Every
sounds
guy just was like, yeah,
okay, but here's the
yes.
thing. Now, again, I can even repeat that back to you without where I would go originally. So where I wanna say is, like, the plant medicine, like, I love this description of it because I've just been, like, so much more open with explaining to it, is, like, I think about the plant medicine. If you have two how does Bobby explain it? Two faces, right?
No, I mean, you don't need to explain that. It drops you into your heart and opens you up to
Yeah. And
to
it
like
takes
receive.
away the frame of how you think you need to project yourself to the world. So the
Yeah,
what we refer to the
it
mask,
just takes your ego away.
right? And then it puts you in like the authentic who you are. So I
Yes.
want to come back to the sharing of the mess, right? Because here's what I realized in this moment, that this is the first time that I felt that sharing our mess actually like had a purpose.
Mm,
And not just for us, but for
mhm,
other people. And it
mm,
was the first time that I could actually say, I don't have shame or guilt associated to that anymore.
mm,
Um, and how freeing that is to be like, hey, I don't have negative attachment to this. And now here's the thing. Now we're starting to share it where there's no emotional response from me. I don't know so much for you. I can't speak from your perspective, but what that allows you is to now be able to help people with this.
mhm,
And one of the things that also stood out is there was many couples there who commented, and we had no idea. We have no idea who's listening to this, right?
mm,
I feel like it's like that saying about like your kids are always listening. It's like, well, now this podcast is taking on a life of its own. Um, and the feedback we've been getting, I'm sure there's negative feedback, there always is, but the feedback that we've been getting, at least to our faces, is that they love how raw and how real it is. Like it's not, we're not chat GPTing an outline,
no,
like, and so I just wanted to share this part today because this came to me so fucking clear when I was sitting there and I was like, holy shit. I was like, when Ryan says it now, like, it's like, I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity to have him share the story. And then me to be my natural, authentic self and see where this leads this conversation with this person or this couple.
Yeah, because you're leading from the woman's perspective, and I'm leading from the male perspective.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, like I think all successful people, to a degree, like whether it's in business or whether it's anywhere in your life, like you your mess becomes your message, and that's the whole saying that like you have to fail forward. I don't think anybody could become truly successful without failing.
Yeah.
You have to really, you know, feel what it feels like to fail, whether it's like in whatever area of your life. And then it's all about, you have the decision in that moment when you fail to take the lessons from it, take ownership, and move forward with the lessons.
Yeah.
Or you decide that's not for me. I'm not made for that. It's like, I should never get married. My parents were divorced too. See, marriage is an institution. It's just something made up by man. It's like, it's not natural. I shouldn't do it. Like, it's not for me. Or you could take, the learning from the experience and really see the reflection and take ownership of how you showed up. Right. But that takes like huge balls. It takes like you have to remove your ego in that moment to do that, because your ego wants to fight tooth and nail to make sure you don't look silly, you don't look stupid, and that you don't take ownership for the failure. Right. That it's like, it's not your fault, but it is your fault. Right. It sounds harsh, but you have to take a degree of ownership, whether, no matter what the circumstances in your life. And when you take the lessons from that and you apply it going forward and you're better, the magic happens then. And that's what we're sharing with people, like in this group, for example, because we're quite a few people there that's like, hey, there's been an infidelity, or I've been been unfaithful, or how do I get my husband to step up in a way that I see you have? And that's a really hard thing to answer, because everybody's life is so different and everybody's dynamic is so different. But I think like fundamentally, like I've told this story before, like what Wake Up Warrior helped me rediscover was like the original reason that I chose you to be my wife. Right. And that was because you had a vision, like, listen, like you married me when I was nothing. Right. Like I joke, it's like I had a Toyota Camry and a cast iron pan and six figures.
Legit.
Yeah.
Didn't even have a working TV.
Yeah. I mean, and there was a reason Kendra like didn't want to date me and then pushed me away and dumped me. And
I wanted to be friends.
Yeah. So I was persistent and I got what I want. But in getting what I want, I had to sign a contract in stepping up to that version of me that I had to become.
Well, not a physical one. That sounds horrible.
What do you mean?
I didn't make you sign a physical contract that
I
year.
didn't say a physical contract. I'm just.
I know, but it sounds like I
okay.
made you sign like a prenup of
no.
I'll not be an asshole.
No, but you do sign a metaphorical contract of like, so this is like, well, you found the right person when they've decided to marry you for who you are when you get married. But then also there's an agreement of like who they sign a contract with, in order to fulfill the vision of what you want to create together. And if you're not pulling your weight, then it's like, well, fuck you. Like, this is the type of woman you're going to get. And the same vice versa. It's like, fuck you. This is the type of guy you're going to get. And that's what happens. And then so often it looks very like common. In other words, it could look like you're just roommates. Right. And the thing is, it's not like you can just create a marriage and it exists. It has to evolve constantly. And there always has to be like ways that you fight becoming roommates. Right. You have to plan date nights.
But here's the thing.
You have to like make sure that you're like paying attention to the things that are going to make that attraction and, that dynamic continue to evolve and grow. Right.
And I think when you're in it, it's really difficult for you to take that responsibility, because you're almost like, I picture a horse with the blinders on, like a racehorse, right? That visual is so powerful for me. It's like when you are in the shit, like you have blinders on like, hey, what's my responsibility in this? But I think the huge thing too is that,
What
like,
happens so slowly too, and that's what I'm
yeah,
saying, it looks common, it looks like no big deal,
yeah,
it looks like, "Oh, well, no worries, like, we're fine." If
yeah,
you ever say we're fine, like, you're
it's a
not.
problem, right? Yeah. But I think that the back to the emotional safety, which, like, on the emotional safety thing, that's gonna be our next episode because I wanna expand on that. But it's like one of the things with the plant medicine retreat is that you are in this group of people that just want to evolve. They want to work through this. There is so much, and like, I thought about it, I was like, "Holy shit." Like, I am not one of those people that, like, I'm proud of myself. I really struggle with that with myself, like, being like, "You did a good job," or, like, "You did that right," or,
It's
like,
because 'cause you're a perfectionist.
yes, and it paralyzes me at times, more than it helps me, and I'm just starting to build awareness about this, but what I was saying is that just the breakthrough for me that, like, I was like, "Holy shit, Ryan told that story 3 times, 3 different contexts, 3 different people," and a little bit more, like I said, you started doing a little bit more detail every time, and I was just, like, sitting there being like, "Holy shit, I have no negative feelings towards this." I am starting to see the shift of where I can pull the positive out. Like I said, all of those conversations, which were all amazing conversations, but they were rooted in one thing too, and this is the detail you started adding more of was, um, like, you telling me the truth. And you were sharing the part of the story about how, like, you told me the truth, and we were sharing about how I found out about it, and then but you only shared a portion of the truth. But my gut instinct was there was more truth than what you shared. And I think that a lot of the work I have done myself personally through therapy and other different aspects has been me rectifying, like, hey, the shame and the guilt and the responsibility that my part was in it. And now that I don't have those negative feelings attached, like, I don't go there every time you talk about it. Like I said, there's no emotional response, because I see where this can help not only myself move forward, but other people.
Mhm.
And I think that was just like a really huge thing, but I would never have been able to feel that if I wasn't, like, in an emotionally safe place where I can even tell you that, and
Yeah,
communicate that to
this
you.
is, like, 8 years later. So,
Yeah,
for those that are, like, working through something like that, like, it doesn't happen overnight.
it's definitely not. And I think that, like, that's just what, like, I don't know, that's I felt like that's what I was gonna tell you before we got on the podcast, but then, like I said, we just decided to do it as our podcast, so hopefully people got a lot of value from that. I don't really know how to close this out, but I just, like, I feel so much lighter. I feel much more like,
Yeah, you know why? It's because truth makes you feel like that.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there cannot be, like, a wildly connected and sexually, like, dynamic relationship without a fundament foundation of trust, which equals truth. So
yeah,
when you feel like the authentic truth of each other, then that's where you can honestly, like, you can build a life on that.
yeah. And I think it's just like, and I certainly don't recommend, like, "Hey, go talk to your spouse and be like, 'Hey, here's an area where I haven't been truthful.'" Like, no. But, like, just start to think about, like, yourself, like, what are places that you've been somewhat like, you've told half truth, where it's like, "Hey, this isn't that bad," but the reality is, like, actually, you really do want this to change.
Yeah, or just what are some ways that you know you're not, fulfilling your contract?
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a lot of
Metaphorical
yeah, it doesn't
contract.
have to be a lot of things, but what are some ways that, you're not stepping up in the marriage, for example,
Mhm.
right? In ways that you know your spouse loves, right? It's like you withhold those things because they're not stepping up in ways that you want, but that's not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of people, like, especially men, will say, like, "Oh, my wife sexually withholds." I think that's a very common withholding pattern. Not a healthy one, but a common one.
Yeah, but women withhold when they don't feel emotionally
And that's
seen.
where I was gonna go. That's the vicious cycle, right? Is like,
Yeah,
hey, when the man doesn't make himself emotionally available and is just trying to fix her all the time, it gets very
yeah.
unsafe.
Well, I
to
think
say, "Hey, here's how I feel."
women underestimate how important it is to touch their husband, first of all. Like, it doesn't have to be sexual every time, just touching their husband. And then men underestimate how much more their wife would touch them if they just made them feel safe.
Yeah.
And
Or just listen without fixing.
yeah, just safe and seen, whatever that
Mhm. Yeah.
means. So we can leave it at that.
Alright.
Close it up.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone who also might enjoy it. And as always, please rate, review, and subscribe and stay tuned because we have our minds going on some future topics, but we're always open to ones
Yeah,
that
we
you want to
appreciate
hear
you
about.
guys listening, and we will see you guys next week.